The strongest race combos in D&D. Brought to you by Luminous Lore. Want to subdue gods and defeat your enemies with nothing but your imagination? Well, Luminous Lore is here to let players and DMs channel their characters' creativity into power. Bring your art to life as a luminary, trap enemies in the pages of books as a captivary, or channel the power of dreams and awaken the strength of artifacts as a chosen. In Equatoria, humans and gods wander the world, vying to control each other through the setting's surreal magic system. Play as races that look straight out of a person's dreams or nightmares, like the Onarian cosplaying as biblically accurate angels, or the Nephilim who just look like cooler Aasimars in every way. The Kickstarter also launched with some snazzy dice cages that'll turn your dice hoarder habits into an actual aesthetic. Kickstarter's only live for another week, so check it out using the link down below. But with that said, let's get right into the video. Okay, so I gotta say that I'm not the type of creator to make videos on busted ways to mess with the game. Sure, we killed a god at level 1 and blasted dragons away with one punch in some older videos, but those all required having tons of magic items and are obviously just thought experiments more than anything else. So I'm not gonna break my streak by making a video on race combos that are gonna just drive your dungeon masters mad, but instead on some race combos you can pull off with your friends that are just really fun and guaranteed to be a blast to play. Hope you'll enjoy. A human, elf, and dwarf. The classic trio. Dwarves and elves were almost made to be in the same party together, which is ironic to say considering these two races notoriously hate each other. The dwarf will cuss out the elf for everything under the sun just for existing, and the elf will stab back with pinpoint accurate insults at every one of the dwarf's insecurities. The human is almost always the reason why these two don't end up killing each other, and is basically the glue that keeps the whole party together. It never gets old listening to the dwarf and elf players have at it, and then see them ask the human who won the argument. Then when heroics are needed and the party's in trouble, I can't describe to you how touching it is to see the walls of malice break down as the dwarf and elf come to each other's aid without a second thought. It's a tale as old as time, and the unique way your dungeon master structures the game, coupled with the types of personalities you give your characters, completely reshapes how the trope plays out. Stereotype, schmereotype, it's just so much fun. Old dwarves. So we all know the stereotype that comes along with just one dwarf, right? Wanting to dig holes everywhere, get blackout drunk, hate elves. Well, for every extra dwarf in your party, you saturate the personalities of all of them even more. A dwarf that might get bullied by other party members for wanting to dig a hole through a dungeon will instead be praised for his ingenious idea by all the other dwarves. The entire goal of an adventure might change to paying off hundreds of gold worth of debt after a night out. And I guess just prepare for any elf in a 20-mile radius to quiver at the sight of the party. I also have to hammer down that if there's more than 2 dwarves in the party, do not, I repeat, do not bring any other race along. The dwarves are all basically a combined entity that bounce off each other like an echo chamber. If you're not gonna be a dwarf, they're all gonna act like you're not even there, or worse, badmouth you every time you try to speak. All dwarf parties are rare, but when you see it happening, you can't let the chance evade you. A Warforged and a gnome. Gnomes love to tinker, and Warforged are basically robots, so it's a match made in heaven. You can even toss in an auto-gnome player in the mix if you have that race on hand. Whenever I play any robotic race in D&D, I'm always eager to do some role-playing with someone naturally good with machinery. Usually it's only going to be with an NPC, but the chance to roleplay with a gnome character, especially if they're an artificer, would be even better. They'd probably know the inner workings of the Warforged's body better than them, and to repay the gnome, the robot might be loyal in keeping them safe. A gnome getting more chances to tinker, and the robot being with a traveling repairman couldn't be a better relationship. A Tiefling and an Aasimar. This is a rare combo to see just because Aasimar are rarely played in D&D. Tieflings, on the other hand, are in almost every game. Regardless, the most common trope here is that the Tiefling is a bit on the evil side and the Aasimar is more on the good one. This good versus evil clash can make for a lot of interesting tension as one is constantly chasing after the other. It's not so much where the Aasimar player is trying to throw the Tiefling into prison, and more like they just want to teach them the proper way to act. Another fun part about this combo is that it has a lot of cool directions it can spiral into. The Tiefling might learn the errors of their ways and change for the better. The Tiefling might drag the Aasimar into the mud and they both embrace the darkness. Or the two of them never change at all and just learn to appreciate each other's perspectives on life. Regardless of the outcome, it's almost guaranteed that these two characters will wind up dating by the end of things. I honestly can't tell you how much fan art I've seen on the D&D subreddits proving this one to be true. A Goliath in any small race. Goliaths are the go-to race for this combo, but new bulky races like the Feywild can also pull this off. Basically, the big guy picks up the smaller guy and carries them around. Since Goliaths count as a size larger for what they can carry, small characters can ride them like a mount. It's great because the small race benefits from a faster movement speed, can quickly get thrown by the Goliath to get places even faster, and lets the small race use a lance one-handed because they're technically mounted. The Goliath can also choose to put the small character in their backpack to sneak them through places, and so many other fun synergies can come up from just being right next to each other all the time. It might be the most mechanically useful pairing out of any of the others, but hey, it's super flavorful too, and that's why we like it. A tabaxi with a bird. Cats love to hunt birds, and pairing a giant cat with a giant bird can only wind up being hilarious. Kenku and Aarakocra are the two that come to mind, and roleplaying the fear that these avians would have from the tabaxi would be great. Then throughout the game, the tabaxi will just allude to wanting to hunt the birds down, maybe accidentally lunging at them if they make any sudden movements, or if rations are low, actually attack one of them in starvation. Probably the most antagonistic combo we're going to pair. A goblin, fairy, and kobold. Oh god, a party with all three of these races together would be absolutely chaotic in all the best ways. They're all the same size, so unlike some groups where the tallest person winds up being the leader who keeps everyone in check, this entire group would be the definition of anarchy. Nobody's tied down to a single authority, and everyone's free to lead the group in whatever wild direction they choose. Since each of these races are also known for being rambunctious, there's no doubt they're all gonna get into a lot of trouble. I'm also assuming we also all agreed that the official fairy race sucks and all of us are using homebrew. But if we're not, I finally finished designing my own version, and it's live on Patreon. Regardless though, DMs need to design their campaigns knowing that the party isn't always going to want to play the heroes, and need to reward them for being chaotic and executing it well. And then on a fateful day, when the group bites off more than they can chew, is when the entire session turns into a ricochet of karma. Old Genasi. There's a fire Genasi, water Genasi, earth, and air, so a party with all four of them sounds like the perfect combination. You're all going to bring something different to the table, yet all have the same shared origin. There's tons of cool ways a story starring a gang like this could go, and since you all have different racial abilities, you'll almost always have a perfect way to handle any problem thrown at you. The fan art that gets commissioned to show off your whole group is also going to look sick with everyone showing off their elemental powers, so be ready for that. All turtles. Sorry for all these just being the entire group being the same race, but like, all turtles? You can't blame me for this. It's literally the Ninja Turtles, and sure, we don't have Sai or Nunchucks in 5e, but you don't need to copy them completely, in fact, you probably shouldn't. It's hilarious that you can make a full Squirtle squad in the first place, but it veers pretty close to gimmick territory. And you'll need to make sure each turtle is an actually fleshed out character to avoid the entire party being a bunch of one-note knockoffs. A full Feywild team. Tons of races have connections to the Feywild, like Satyr, Hobgoblins, Eladrin, you name it. Normally, the Feywild almost never matters in any D&D game, and if one player is playing a Feywild race, then maybe it gets mentioned every now and then. An entire group of Feywild races, though, is just begging for the campaign to explore the idea. And since every race had a different experience with the plane, it enhances everyone's backstories because they all matter so much more with each other. All flying races. This basically only applies to fairies and Aarakocra, but if you're guessing why, the answer is just because they can fly. One of the biggest things that hampers having a flying speed in D&D is that you can't bring the rest of your party members along with you. A lot of tables stick with the don't split the party rule too, so all of that freedom is still kind of shackled down to the rest of the party's bootstraps. If everyone's able to fly infinitely though, that opens up the environment to so many new things, like soaring through the clouds to travel to new locations, or just easily pelting targets from below as a group. Now, I wouldn't just be bringing up this combo if it was powerful, but because good DMs are crafty and will gladly jump to the challenge of filling the sky with all new arrays of monsters to challenge you all with. You'll go from worrying about bandits jumping out of the woods to fighting wyverns in the sky. I'd say that alone would make this worth trying out. Blaine, never simple, and I'll see you all in the next video.